What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and thank you guys a lot for the donations. I mean, really, I appreciate it. That was much love you guys showed yesterday. And you guys clicking the link in the description box. You want to leave your donation, don't forget, hit the Streamlab up and leave your number in there, and we'll talk if you want to talk. So don't forget, today we will be doing that as well. Talking with some of the people that donate to the page and want to show love to the page. Appreciate that. You get to have your voice heard. And everybody else, they've been donating on the Cash App. Carcino's the name. Now, this is about how N.W.A changed East Coast HipHop forever. They changed it forever. There were guys in the streets saying they was rapping about gangster stuff and all this and that. True, but they were watching what they had to say. If your record had a lot of profanity, they wasn't going to play it. See, back then, record companies were borderline halfway on rap anyway. They were only dealing with rap because they felt they had to. Like, okay, we'll deal with this right now, but we're not going to actually make a profit off hip hop. That's how they viewed it until Run DMC hit. But even back then, if you cursed on a record, they would give you maybe 1 or 2 F words on a record, on an album, and then they'll let that pass. Other than that, your record was considered okay. So, the parental advisory sticker came along once the N.W.A era came into play. They start having to slap records with this parental advisory thing, and that just made the kid want to get it more. But you got to think about what was going on at that time and era. In that time and era in hip-hop, you had groups. You had Boogie Down Production, Gang Starr. You had EPMD coming into their own. They was just starting to come into the game and doing their thing. You had all of these Beastie Boys was out there crushing it. So, groups were taking their swing at that time. I remember Gang Starr was out there crushing it. And when this era happened, and then doing this 1990s hit, that was the changing of the guard for East Coast hip-hop. Some East Coast hip-hop had to fight against the West Coast style, which they call West Coast gangster rap. They just called all of it gangster rap. It's gangster rap. So the East Coast was against it. Like all the people who were supporting the movement and all of these things, like, the West Coast, all they talk about is gang rap. So they had DJ Polo and Cool G Rap. That was like the East Coast gangster rap back then. That came into prominence. But other groups started to fall by the wayside. They had great albums, but no success financially, like Pete Rock and CL Smooth. They really didn't have the monumental success as far as, their album selling millions of records, as it should have, both of them. But you start seeing that the West Coast was more than that. They had groups like The Far Side and a lot of rappers from the Bay that wasn't really into the gangster rap mode. But that got overshadowed by groups like N.W.A. Then here come Ice Cube. Then Ice-T was out doing his thing. Now, when Ice-T was dropping Power and OG, Original Gangster, Ice-T was cool on both sides, but he didn't really change it. When N.W.A. came out and hit in like 87, 88, about time 1990 came, it was a transition of the changing of the guard. So groups like Black Sheep was coming around. They had the one hit song on the album, but their album was popping. It just didn't sell. Jungle Brothers fell off. Tribe Called Quest was the only group really, because they had crossed over into mainstream. Boogie Down Productions was done. Gang Starr was basically done. You know, it was a hard time to make a living for East Coast hip hop, because people was wanting to hear the most grimiest thing that they could hear. And if you wasn't saying the most grimiest thing around, then you were going to fall by the wayside. So now everybody had to evolve how they was rhyming. So you had people changing it up, getting more rugged and gangster. Because Run DMC, you know, that put them out the game. They tried, but that put them out. Cool G Rap and DJ Polo, this was up their alley. But for Run DMC, this is a whole new roller coaster that they ain't ready for. All this gangster rap stuff, that's not the rhyme they do. So people was fading them out. The Heavy D and the boys, you know, this was gonna fade them out. So the groups were starting to fall apart. Nobody wanted to see the dance and rap crew no more. You know, and Hev was loved. So the changing of the guard happened. And you start seeing things take off in other directions, as far as more and more people started to go towards making their records more harder, using more profanity, getting more lewd with the lyrics. So as this continued on, you know, because when you had the Funky 4+1, the Cold Crush Brothers, the Ready Rock Steady crew, and all of these other guys, when they got out the game or they fell off, they felt like, all right, cool, this group got it, they gonna take it on. Sugar Hill Gang, all them back in the day, Bambaataa, they knew that, okay, we could pass the torch on to these dudes. They got it. They were like, East Coast is like, we can't pass the torch to these West Coast dudes with this gangster rap. You know, Houdini was like, man, look, we can't do that. We ain't that kind of group. We rap, but we more like R&B rap. You know, we about the ladies and having a good time and just an escape from the everyday about music. We ain't finna get into this gangster stuff. And they were out. You know, they was like, man, this music was educational, and talking about now people ain't even into that. They just talking reckless. And I remember they tried to give Eazy-E a lecture. I forgot one of the rappers out there. I don't know if it was King's son. I don't even know if it was him. It was one of them dudes, and they was in the red, black, and green movement. Like, everybody had to wear that red, black, and green on the East Coast. They was putting up the jewelry, taking off the gold chains, and putting on these red Africa symbols and all that. And they was at some summit. I don't know if it was Jack the Rapper or whatever. Somebody, they brought it to Eazy-E, talking about his lyrics and putting all this cuss words on the records and all of this stuff, and talking about his poisoning the youth. And Eazy-E was like, so what's your record about? Are you a rapper? He was like, yeah. We were talking about this and that. And he's like, okay. You talk about things that go on in your community. I talk about things that go on in my community. Where I live, where I'm from. What's wrong with that? So you never heard profanity before, right? You seen a rated R movie, right? It's got all kind of killing and shooting and cursing in it. Did you stand up to the producers of those films and tell them they can't be putting that out there? That's poisonous to the kids. They got visual aids. We just talking about it on records. Easy broke it all down to the whole summit. He said, I'm a businessman. If it makes more money doing what we doing without cursing, then hey, I do it without cursing. Whichever, I'm a businessman. So if it makes me more money putting out a radio edition, he's like, I'll put the radio mix out. You don't have to buy the record with the profanity. You got your choice, but people choose to buy more records with the profanity on it. He's like, have you heard a Richard Pryor comedy album on records? So your parents been listening to dirty tapes. They got the Red Fox record. He's like, they had all these Richard Pryor albums. Him talking as dirty and as filthy as anything you ever heard. He's like, I used to hear it in my house. So I know y'all heard it in y'all house growing up. I ain't saying nothing y'all don't know. He was right. But it changed hip-hop. Because hip-hop changed. You know, Eric B. and Rakim end up splitting up. EPMD end up splitting up. And everybody that was a group back then was splitting up or changing their ways and changing their sound. Everybody's more gangster now. Everything's more street. So the next wave of rappers that come out after N.W.A, you got Mobb Deep. You got you got MOP. You got people that's from the streets and they talking about hustling. They got these guys in the game now. Now they have no chill. They about as gangster as anything you didn't heard. They gonna tell you anything. They kids. So at this time, nobody want to hear no Naughty by Nature saying, hey, oh, get up the way. You know, nobody want to hear that. They don't want to hear Salt and Pepper. They don't want to hear none of that. They want to hear the most grimiest thing you could say. But now, here's the next catch. Where's it gonna go from there? See, Slick Rick told y'all this, and he was so against it, and he was behind bars, locked up. They interviewed him for the movie, and he said it when Snoop and all them was riding. He was like, I seen that, but he was like, what? You can't front from Ma Dukes? You gonna be like that in front of moms? Yo, mom had the stash. She's like, nah. He's like, what's next? He's like, well, I got a gun, you got a gun. What's next? I got a tank. You got a tank. And it was in 94 he was talking about this. What's next? It's only going to get worse. It's going to get more ridiculous. And now, look where it's at. We got 600 songs out right now, and about 598 sound the same. You don't know who is who, which album is which. Everybody's scared to do something different. And they got some of the weakest minded people in the world as artists. They own it all. So congratulations. We lost. When Nas said hip hop was dead in 2006, y'all laughed. Ain't nobody laughing now. Y'all should have listened to Nas. Because when 2 Live Crew was doing their thing, now look at where they went to. They all out the game. All them other guys, they considered old school, they vets, they out the game. Now, these dudes got the game. They ain't talking about nothing but dope and drugs and getting high, partying, and taking drugs. The 80s, they talked about selling it. The 90s, brother, the 80s, late 80s / 90s, it was all about the selling of the drugs. Now, these dudes talking about doing the drugs. It's crazy. But anyway, I'm out. You like what you heard? Don't forget to subscribe. 1.